but I don't really remember that. All right, this is the old farts, as requested by some of the members. This is the 197th old farts, otherwise known as Adventures in Technology. We were having an interesting conversation a little bit earlier, but I got distracted. So can somebody summarize what we were talking about a few minutes ago?
Well, if I remember right, we were talking about how Paul had the idea of Christians were persecuted over the last 25 years. And then we also talked a little bit about how whether it's a Christian nation or not, and also about how religion and ethnic groups can be educated enough to prevent the wars that we gladly put forth every time.
Well, I was thinking more that in the 60s and 70s, it was considered impolite to say nasty things about another group. People said it, but it was considered impolite. People in polite society tended not to talk about it. Over the past 10 years, it is considered appropriate to say nasty things about another religion or another group or whatever. And I think that more than anything else is why we're seeing an uptick in physical and verbal attacks on other groups. Paul was trying to do some research to identify areas where Christians are being persecuted. Certainly, the Jews are being persecuted here. Muslims are persecuted in a variety of places. It's every group, I think, can point and say, this is happening to good people and shouldn't be happening. But in order to make it stop, we as individuals have to do two things. One, not do it ourselves. And two, make it clear that when people talk about things that could be interpreted as, I'm going to be a hero and I'm going to fix this, that they're discouraged by the people around them. Laws are nice, but societal pressure, I think, is more important.
Societal silence is what actually allows groups to continue the destruction the way they want. Because the bystanders can't speak up, either because most of them are afraid, because the groups have the guns or swords or stones, whatever it was the time, and the other bystanders have nothing and a lot to lose if they object.
So I think that's true, but in the same way as some of these people who are going to be heroes by killing somebody else who looks different or acts different or talks different, people have to be heroes to say, we're going to protect these people.
Yes, that is true. I mean,
can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Giving my
can
own.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know if I was on.
No.
Yeah, you are.
Well,
do you have something to say, Paul?
No. I just didn't realize. I've had a message that was my internet was intermittent, so I didn't know whether I was on or not.
Yeah.
My picture is there, but I didn't realize I could say anything. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
Ramadan.
What I was saying is, from my own personal example, I can see how religion can be used to terrorize other folks, minorities, and having been a minority and having been terrorized in that way. And I know from personal experience, the larger population who were the majority, they either stood by or were afraid. And that's where the complacency comes up. And it was very difficult to, and some people like actively participated. So it became very difficult to figure out who was in and who was out. And so naturally, a lot of us ran away. But that's what I'm saying is that when religion is used to say that if you did this, you will go to heaven or you will have whatever. If you didn't, then you will be dead because the God is going to trample you. And so naturally, people who follow religions are very strictly will fall prey to such rhetoric, and people have done over the ages.
Mhm.
And used various mechanisms to kill each other. And so sad, but that's where we stand.
Right. Uh, and the only thing I can say that gives me hope is that there was a period in our recent history where there was less of it. It wasn't as accepted. And maybe we can go back to that.
And I should also add, yes, I also have hope because I can see that folks were when we as minorities ran away, my parents ran away, everybody ran away, and they were ferried by folks with trucks who were majority community. They helped them run away, but at the same time they couldn't protect them. So you can it's a dilemma, and the problem is then then when folks ran away, their property was taken away. People took things whatever they could, and not only whatever they could, they just took. That's the end of that. And so these people are away, it's gone, forget about it, take all the property which is available and took it. So, but at the same time, I can see that if the majority community is really into it, they could kill the minority community in half a day. But because not everybody is in, only the group who are ardent terrorists, they begin to terrorize everybody. So that's where Chuck's point and your point about education comes in. And not only education, but also being a hero and protecting the minorities becomes a very important point in a democracy.
I'm trying to mull on all these things that have been said and what we talked about even before the program started. But I don't think I can't believe that I'm in the minority. I mean, I don't personally know a lot of some groups of minorities, but I've had my relationships with on different levels with some. But I've never had, and I don't like to use the word never, but I can't. I've been thinking for the last few minutes as I've heard people speak. I can't think of a time where I've had a confrontation with anybody about their religion or their ethnic background or their race. And I can't even think of anybody that I've been around or associated with that have expressed those kinds of things. So I'm a little befuddled on what I know it's out there. I no question. I know it's happening, and I think it's a sorry state to be. But I think there's more hope. I think the vast majority of those people who are the hate mongers for whatever reason make it appear that they're the majority, and they're not.
That's why I said that because they have the tools, they have the swords, or they have the guns, so everybody else is afraid. Who are not in it, what is one going to do in front of a terrorist? You get killed.
Well, I think that it's not so much the terrorists, it's the people who accept. Um, a perfect example. Back in 1770s, the vast majority of people who lived in the colonies saw themselves as British. They're subject to the king and parliament, and that's the way it was. And there was a small group who, for a variety of reasons, depending upon the individual, uh, they had their different reasons. Not John Adams, Sam Adams, of beer fame, was a smuggler, and the British Navy was screwing up his business, so he was fighting it. There were a bunch of people who decided they wanted to be independent. Not so much they wanted to be independent, they wanted to be in charge. And the vast majority was saying, we don't care. We're not affected. The Stamp Act doesn't make any difference to us. Tea, yeah, we like tea and it's a little more expensive than it was, but we don't care. And it was these people who were running around, creating problems, being heroes, throwing rocks at people with guns, which is kind of stupid. Boston Massacre is one I'm thinking of. And essentially forcing people to make choices. But the vast majority of Americans didn't make a choice. They just went along with what was. And many of them were, in fact, terrorized by the rebels. Now, we think that the American rebels in the Revolutionary War were wonderful people, very brave, very whatever. Had the war gone a little bit differently? Not so much. And oh, by the way, there were families. Ben Franklin's son was a loyalist.
And Ben Franklin was very unhappy about that.
Oh yeah.
Did Ben Franklin's son also go to Canada or no?
I don't know what happened ultimately. I do know that,
Who went to Canada?
well, a number of loyalists
Yes.
from the
Yeah.
colonies went to Canada. I don't know the percentage.
Well, Ben Franklin's son did not do that.
I don't know. He may have, he may not. I don't know.
He was appointed the governor of New Jersey,
Really?
and at the end of the Revolution, he went back to England, lived out his life in England.
Okay, so he was before
He
the
was a
war was over. He was governor of New Jersey, and then
Well,
when
before the revolution was over, before it even started, at the very
Okay.
beginning, he was appointed by English government to be the governor of New Jersey.
okay,
And then at the end of the revolution, he was locked up in prison by the Americans,
hmm
and eventually released. But he went back to England at the end.
right, which
Lived
makes
out his
sense.
life, I believe, in England.
Yeah. My point of that long harangue was, who's the hero? It every day we see people doing or saying things which they may see themselves as being heroic. because they're stepping out of line.
Well, I think it's too big of a topic to be able to cover very easily.
Well, what I would say
Sounds
is,
like, almost sounds like to me that you're advocating they should have just gone along to get along.
no, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. I'm responsible for making sure my family survives and hopefully prospers. And if I take a risk, I'm taking the risk and it's affecting my family. I'm not saying that I shouldn't take the risk necessarily, but nothing's free.
That's correct.
So something to think about. And if in fact we change the attitude of enough of America that it's not right to attack somebody because of what they're wearing or what they're speaking or whatever, then much of this bigotry, we call it bigotry now because we don't like it, will go back underground. It'll still be there. Somebody uh, will find a way to bring it up again. But maybe in my lifetime and maybe in my daughter's lifetime, it won't be nearly as bad. That's really all I can control. Paul, you haven't said much.
The bigotry, um, I haven't said anything at all. I think I have an internet connection that's not good. At any rate, I think the problem is the people in the United States have lost the concept of individual freedom, and they want to impose their idea of freedoms, whatever that is, on other people. And I don't know. Uh, am I breaking up? I keep getting a message that says my internet is unstable.
No,
Am I
you're
we
breaking
can
fine.
up
hear you.
when I talk?
We can hear you.
Does anybody hear me?
Yeah, we all,
We can hear
Oh,
you.
okay.
Uh,
To, because right now, in the United States, we have very distinct groups of people that are basically against each other. They're not so much willing to talk to each other; they're against each other, and that's a very troubling situation. I think the political situation here is just not good at all, and people have forgotten what it's supposed to be, what an American is supposed to be. You know,
what is an
their
American supposed to be?
willingness to use guns against other people. What an American is supposed to be is supposed to get along with everybody, not that's my idea. You know, freedom of speech and uh, you can try to get your ideas across, but don't try to do it forcefully. And
let me ask you a question. Let me
that's
ask you a
what I
question.
see is our political situation right now. People that are hell bent on forcing other people to do what they think people should do. And I think we've lost our idea of getting along with each other. And it's getting worse.
Chuck, you had a question.
Anybody have
Well, I was going to ask,
a
ask Paul
An
that.
observation on that?
I ask you, Paul,
I'm sorry?
I want to ask you a question. I mean, and it pertains just as well to Omanon or Bob. Uh, the people that you associate with, whether it be family or friends, co-workers or anything, are you feeling that with this group of people? Are you feeling this anti feeling coming from the people that you're regularly associated with, or Bob or Omanon?
I can tell you that at
Um,
Thanksgiving
yeah,
dinner, there were topics we were told do
yeah,
not talk about.
I do see,
Go ahead, Paul.
yeah, I do see a dichotomy in ideas, and when when we either don't talk about it at all, or we it ends up in a um, elevated patterns. And, I'm very disappointed. Happening. At least it's happening with people I know, including in
Shouldn't
my
it
own
be
family.
possible? Shouldn't it be possible for us to be able to be talking to somebody that we know fairly decently, whether it be a relative or a friend or whatever, and know that you are have different viewpoints on things, and be able to say, I'd like to talk to you about it, but let's be civil about this, and let's not get carried away. I think that's what we try to do here
Mhm.
on this program. Uh, I mean, there are opportunities on all our sides for any one of
Yeah,
us to jump on, and jump on each other about something that we expressed, and berate that person. But we hold back because we value that relationship more than we necessarily value that point, at least at the moment.
Yeah,
And I think it's to in my mind to shy away from, whether it be at a family dinner, um, to, topics that probably should be discussed. And people are saying, "Oh, you can't talk any politics at a family gathering. Oh, you can't talk about this or that." Um, Many families, that's where they do talk about these things, and they learn from each other, because somebody in that group can be the moderator in such a way that will cool things down or pipe them up when the topic is getting out of control or not being handled right.
it's an interesting point. Um, just thinking about the Thanksgiving dinner from last week, I don't think we have somebody in the group that has the standing, for lack of a better term, to be able to say, wait a minute, no, we're not going to say that
Why couldn't you be that?
because I'm an outlaw.
Oh,
That
Um,
that's something that's in your opinion.
I I don't have the standing. If I were,
But
uh,
if you were to say to those people at that table, listen, I know many of you may consider me to be an outlaw and to be one that stirs up things and so forth. I'm trying to better myself. And so I'd like you to give me a chance to try to moderate a discussion on this. And if I get off center a little bit, remind me that what I said.
I don't think it would work in our environment, but I like your concept. Um, I could see it perhaps working in a smaller group. Um, but what you're essentially saying is you're making other people uncomfortable, maybe for a good reason. but you're making other people uncomfortable. And supposedly Thanksgiving is when everybody gets together and laughs and talks about what happened 20 years ago.
Um, we can, I've said my piece. I don't know what, I don't
No,
know.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure it would work. It would be wonderful if it did, and maybe in a different group, it would work better. Maybe in Omanon's family, um, it might work a little bit better.
Why would it work in Omanan's
Well,
family
that's,
better?
yeah, I was gonna comment on that, that
You're
given
the
that,
oldest. You're the father,
yeah,
um, and it gives you a certain amount of standing.
that's what I was gonna say, that when you are in at a Thanksgiving dinner and the host has the mic actually rather than the guests, so it might become rather real uncomfortable for an outlaw to declare himself to be a moderator. But yes, if you were to hold the dinner at your house, you are in charge. You can say anything. Oh, I'm going to serve boiled broccoli. You let it be, or no, you take charge. But I understand the principle. What actually Chuck has a really good idea.
Yeah, I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, but at the same time, the practicality is, that's what I pointed out, that if you are the host, you could actually take charge and initiate that kind of a discussion. That would be really a great start. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing what Chuck's intentions are.
Maybe you have to even break this down to a smaller piece and saying, for the next half hour, we're going to talk about some topics, but after that, we can go and talk about the last 20 years or whatever else it is. But let's try to feel if we can learn from each other.
I like that, but at the same time, I can see that.
I'm not saying it's easy.
No, it's not easy. But what I was going to say is that yes, we should be prepared for some hot conversations, and the host has to be ready. The host has to be, or the moderator has to really be a good moderator, to really moderate it in such a way, either liquor up everybody first.
I mean, the probability is that all of us, in whatever family gathering we have, are probably the senior member of that gathering.
True.
We're pretty close to it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if nothing else, that would supposedly give us some degree of hopeful respect, and that when we speak, people will listen a little bit more.
They better
and maybe
listen.
You have to say, wait a minute, I didn't care for that comment you just made. That goes against what I was just trying to say.
I'll just give one example. My example, I was in a group, not Thanksgiving dinner, but in a group. They were inviting everybody to come on Zoom, and they would sing a song or have a discussion and make jokes. I find myself to be an oddball there, but what irked me is that they are husband and wife, and lo and behold, the jokes are all about women. And I said, you know what? And I said it loud. I said, you know what? If you are going to do that, this insults my intelligence. And my wife said, you shut up. Why did you say that?
You said what?
I said it insults my intelligence that you are being, what is it called? Misogynistic jokes. And I mean, I found that highly disturbing.
That she said that about you?
No. I mean, the group's entertainment was producing the jokes about women.
Were the women part of the group?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, here is your wife sitting next to you, and you are making jokes, misogynic jokes. I mean that
I don't think that was right.
I thought this is stupid, and I
I
said
agree.
so, and I
I
said
agree.
so.
I think that's a great credit to you.
Well, whether it was credit to me or not, I never got invited again.
Is that a bad thing?
No, because I have other things to do.
Maybe
No, but
that's not the kind. Maybe that's not the kind of person you want to hang around with, anyways.
no, I mean that's what told me that is that what I should be doing with whatever time I have. So, but what I was trying to give you the example is you have to make sure that you are in a group that is malleable enough not to really conform to what you're saying, but at least be able to understand where you are coming from and understand that, yes, some things may not be right to say or to even think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, that's an example of somebody having courage and being a hero.
Well, the heroes get shot.
But I didn't say everything is good.
No.
Um, Thinking about similar kinds of things, husband and wife kind of thing. Um, Mostly we tell stories, and when I tell a story, it's the butt of the joke is my wife. When she tells a story, the butt of the joke is me,
Mm-hmm.
and it evens out. The point being, it's supposed to be funny, not supposed
Yes.
to put somebody down. But again, it depends. Every conversation is the speaker and what they intended,
Yes.
the person spoken to and what they think they heard, and then the third person who's not directly involved in any of it and what they think they heard.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not putting down somebody, that's okay. You can have a common ground that way. But
Yeah.
once you begin to put somebody down at their cost, it doesn't sound right.
But again, it depends upon the individual. If somebody
Yes.
says, you are a lousy singer to me, I agree with them totally. And
Well,
I
that's
have
a
a whole
different
bunch of
thing. That's a
stories.
different thing.
But it's an example.
Yeah.
If I were to tell, where the hell did Paul go?
I don't know. He
If
just disappeared.
I were to tell Paul,
Maybe we insulted him or something.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
if I were to tell Paul that he's a lousy singer, being that his father was an opera singer, he might take umbrage at that.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, know I'm a lousy singer. Never really tried to be anything but. And so you want to come after me on that? Come ahead.
Well, again, if Paul took what you possibly said about him being a lousy singer, that you were serious and not just
Right.
joking around,
Right.
and you couldn't, and you were did not make the correct assessment of how he took it, could make him just walk away, could make him want to punch you, or not ever talk to you again, or could just laugh along because. But if he takes a lot of pride in his singing, and this is the way you commented on, especially if it was in front of other people, then it makes it that much more difficult situation.
I agree absolutely. And it makes every conversation difficult, particularly if you're not in a group where everybody sort of has a common understanding of what the other person is. Even if the other person is not necessarily the ideal individual, we all understand, and we avoid topics that are going to piss everybody off.
Right. I think you need to be mindful of that and be careful that you don't insult somebody unintentionally.
Right.
I mean,
No,
that's where
I
the,
totally agree.
yeah, that's where the pre-speech issue comes up again and again. In discussing pre-speech, those things come up again and again. You're not supposed to yell fire unnecessarily in a theater. And so you got to be cognizant of the situation and the context.
Right. And sometimes it's appropriate to yell fire
Yeah.
in a crowded
I mean,
theater.
if it is
And
radio
sometimes
fire, you
you're
better
wrong.
yell.
You may well be wrong.
Mhm.
You see it, and rather than waiting to make sure you're right and allowing a bunch of people to die, you take action and you hope like hell you're right.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is important. Otherwise, you miss the opportunity and it will become a bigger problem
Yes,
in a few minutes. You don't want to wait.
no, I agree. We had
Well,
originally started talking a while ago, actually before the show started, about the idea of America being a Christian nation, and that the Speaker of the House believes strongly that government should not be involved in religion, but religion should be involved in government. And to some extent, that's essentially saying when you go in and you're making decisions, you're bringing your whole background. And I can understand that. But my worry is when somebody says, this is right and everybody needs to do it. And my concern there is, I don't necessarily consider some of these things right. And I sure as hell, just because of who I am, forget anything else about me. I'm just one of those people who hates being bullied. When somebody says you have to do this, and I don't necessarily agree or understand the background of it, I get angry, and I often do things that I probably shouldn't do.
Now, give us an example of what you might be talking about.
Um,
That
well,
that somebody's telling you to do something that you don't agree with.
or telling me to do not to do something that I think I should be allowed to do, or others should be allowed to do. The obvious example in today is abortion. Someone says that abortion is evil, and maybe on certain occasions it's unavoidable, but it's evil, and anybody who is involved in it is an evil person.
Okay, now that part about anybody involved in it is an evil person is a personal opinion of somebody.
Well, the law in some parts of the United States says they are an evil person
I
and
don't
should
think
be.
I don't think I would be questionable whether in the law itself that it would actually come out and say that you're an evil person because as part of the law that it actually states that therefore you're an evil person.
In
That's
Texas, if you help somebody, even inadvertently, get an abortion or attempt to get an abortion, you can be tried.
okay, but it's not saying there's no place that's what I'm taking issue
Okay,
with
there.
is the fact that it doesn't say you're an evil person. I'm
You're
picking
right.
pieces here because I think in my mind things get distorted and taken out of context too often.
But I use the terminology only because the law says if you're involved, you are guilty of a crime.
Okay, can that be something that people could agree upon?
Some obviously do. In Texas, that's the law.
Okay, well that's based upon a democratic uh, group of people deciding that.
Yes. But according to the polls, and admittedly, polls can be manipulated a variety of different ways, including how you ask the question. Most of the people in Texas do not agree with that idea. There's a small minority which is forced everybody else into a situation where they get to decide what you can and cannot do.
So
What do you think, Alman?
Oh no, I was going to say is that is the power of democracy. One vote will swing it, and that's the end of that.
Well, it's not even that. If you go back to Ohio, they just passed a constitutional amendment saying that abortion, that a woman's rights to medical care is inviolate. Okay, fine. The legislature is now saying, well, let's see, if we pass this law, then the courts can't get involved, and therefore it becomes moot. And if we do this, then we can get around that. So even when the people speak, there is a group of people who, perhaps for very reasonable reasons, are saying they're wrong.
Do you, just out of curiosity, do you know what these people actually voted on? It wasn't a separate issue as far as whether you were voting specifically against abortion. There was like 4 or 5 other topics
Yeah,
that were all linked together. So you
right.
had what I got the impression of, you had to vote for all of these things as one lump sum.
Yes,
And
that's
if you
my
had,
understanding.
and so I'm not so sure that it was a right way of that being presented as a question.
And there may be some validity to what you're saying.
I'd like to go back on that, but I don't have that. I have a copy of that, but I don't have it right in my hand. I'd like to talk about this at our next get together.
That would be fine by me. One of the things to understand is, however the thing was written, and there was a whole bunch of people who were able to get their fingers into the writing. It was debated in the state of Ohio as being pro and anti-abortion. So if you read the whole thing, you might have come up with somewhat of a different idea. But the key was, can somebody get an abortion without having a member of the legislature saying, yeah, okay, if you insist, or yeah, this is hard to fight against, we'll let you have an abortion.
Let me ask you a question, Bob.
Yeah.
Do you think an abortion is appropriate under any circumstances?
I personally not sure that if I was a woman in a given situation, whether I would get an abortion. What I believe strongly is it's not up to me to say whether this woman, in whatever situation she's in, can't consider that as an option.
Okay, so
yeah.
Let me interrupt you because we're
Sure.
running out of time. So it doesn't matter whether it's 3 months along, 6 months along, 9 months along. That is that if the woman decides at birth she can have the child who has been born to be killed, that's okay with you?
Number one, I don't think any law that I've ever heard about says that. And number two,
they call it infanticide. There's a terminology for it, and I can't.
I don't think there is any place abortion happens that late.
It's
not abortion anymore. If the child is born, it's not abortion anymore. It may be. There are places
there was a thing a few years ago, or maybe 3 or 4 years ago, in the state of Virginia, where the previous governor was asked something about an abortion. Again, I can't be quoted totally because I can't remember all the details, but he said something to the effect that once the baby is born, at that point, if the woman didn't want it, we would talk to the doctors and decide what to do.
I
I'll
never
get,
heard that.
okay,
And
okay. I don't
yeah,
want to go press the issue anymore because
no, that's
'cause
fine.
let me get
Let,
the stuff.
let's pretend for the moment it was said. I think that once the child is born, although the child may not die, may not live, there are an awful lot of babies that are born that do not live for a variety of different reasons. Um, you do
What
what you
would you
can
say
to save that life. Huh?
when you say an awful lot? What are you talking? 5%, 10% or more?
I,
Do
I
you have
don't have
anything to
those
back that
numbers.
up?
Omanon, you tend to know this stuff.
I don't have a percentage, but there is I mean, it's always a dangerous process to give birth. Number one, to be pregnant. Number two, to carry it to term. Number three, to give birth. All of these are risky behaviors.
Right.
And risks are very high. And that's why you need expert folks around. And that's why, I mean, I don't have a number which I can quote. But given that the baby is born, baby is born. And that's the end of the pregnancy. And that has nothing to do with now about abortion.
Right. But you may decide. I can remember, I think it was China when they had the one
One
child
child.
policy. That on occasion somebody would kill a female child so that they could get a male.
Right, right. That was part. You have to.
Okay, we don't have that situation here. Although there may be some people who say I can only afford one kid or two kids or 27 or whatever the hell it is, and oh, this is a female or a male or whatever, and so I don't want this kid. There are enough possibilities of things you can do, including adoption, which, by the way, is not a great solution. If you go to an orphanage, kids who come out of orphanages, as a general rule, are not the happiest kids in the world.
I wanted to interrupt. I wanted to get an opportunity to throw a couple other things out, and I wanted to
Sure.
do that. I wanted to do it a couple of days ago when we got together, but it was only Bob and I. And I was hoping that Steve and Omanan would be there. Just a couple quickies. Have either of you heard about the documentary called "The Fall of Minneapolis"?
No.
No. Okay. Uh, it's done by it's been out now for at least a couple weeks, and it's free. You can go on your computer and type in thefallofminneapolis.com, and it's about an hour and 42 minutes. And it's done by a woman who was a journalist in Minneapolis on the George Floyd death.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings up a lot of questions and issues that were certainly looks like they were neglected, covered up, whatever, so forth. But I'd like to see if you have an opportunity between now and next Wednesday to be able to see it. I mean, it's that's one spot where it's free. There's other spots I'm sure that are free. I know Fox Nation has got it on for free.
Mm-hmm.
And that other site, thefallofminneapolis.com, is also free. And the other one is, I was curious whether or not either of you heard anything about the January 6th tapes, videos. What's
Some.
going on with those?
Yes, I've heard some, not all, but some.
But I thought the speaker is going to make them, the new speaker is going to make them public or something like that. but I don't know what happened.
That's
Uh,
correct. I mean, he's gonna make, there's 44,000 hours
Mhm.
of videos, and he's going to release at least around 40,000 of it. He's already released some of them,
And
and
McCarthy did as
I've
well.
seen some of them,
Yeah.
and it's makes a whole lot of questions as far as the validity of that group of politicians on the committee that worked on. I can't remember what her name is right now, who chaired that committee from,
It was not the chair. Liz Cheney is
yeah,
what
Liz
you're talking
Cheney
about. She
and the
wasn't
other
the chair.
person here. But I know there was one person that was seen, that was convicted. Somebody, and I can't remember if it was a cop or something, testified that this person did such and such, and then it shows that this person was never in a position to have ever said that, to have seen what he or heard what this guy said. They were in total different locations during that time, but there's numbers of different things.
And would not be at all surprised if there's a couple of people who, for one reason or another, um, didn't get um, justice. Justice is an interesting term, but didn't get justice. However, the vast majority of those people did what they said, and Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, was pointing out some guy who was um, letting people into the Capitol, and he was holding what Mike Lee said was a badge. Turns out it was a vape. And
I have no problem
right,
seeing the people prosecuted who injured somebody or did something, damaged the property and so forth. But it sounds like to me, Bob, you're saying that it's okay that these other people who may not have done anything should be in jail.
no, it's not okay.
Okay.
Let's start from there. However, I don't know what to do about it, and I have to assume because
You know what happens
if
when you assume something?
well, if you don't assume something, then nothing ever happens because you can never be positive. I don't care what it is, you can never be positive. So you make an
I can be
assumption based
you
on
can
your background.
you can be positive about things. I can be positive. You got glasses on right now, and I got glasses on, and Omanon doesn't.
Agreed. But if we were sitting in the same room and we were sort of back to back, we'd be in the same room. The same events would be happening, but we would see different things.
But
And
if we're seeing different things, I'm trying to think. If we're seeing different, if we're not looking at the same object or what's going on, then we can't be making the same decision.
agreed. And the problem is that everybody's sitting in their own place, including that in that place is their own background and how they interpret what they see.
Yeah, that is the problem actually, even for the film, when we are all looking at the same scene, not all of us can pick out the nuances which other people see and begin to discuss them. It's only once they point out, then you begin to wonder what did I miss? And so
Well,
that's human failing actually, and it has been shown by psychological experiments that unfortunately, when people swear that they saw, and then next time you show them the film again, they were
well,
not looking at the same thing, and the interpretation was completely different.
well, it's again, I jump in the gun a little bit because I have seen very little so far myself of the January 4th. I've seen a few more things and so forth. But so that's really, in my mind, for myself, that's a further discussion and review. The thing on the fall of Minneapolis is something much more relevant, I think.
And
Here are 5 police officers locked up for many years,
yes,
and why were they really locked up? And what all the destruction and the other people that were in fact killed because of that incident that happened, getting caught up in the riots and some of the other things that happened. Where's the justice for all of those and things that happened? And
Uh,
one of the questions that comes up in one of the videos that they show is the trial. The chief of police in Minneapolis being asked, did Officer Chauvin actually have his knee on this guy's neck? And he hesitates and ends up saying no, it was on his shoulder blade.
okay. Um, I
But
I
he
don't
didn't.
remember the
You could
video
tell.
that I
You could
saw.
tell. You could tell with him saying what he was saying. I think most people could sense that he didn't want to say that. He didn't want to say that it was on more on his shoulder blade than it was on his neck. But he knew they had the video that showed that
Okay.
as be the
Can I
case.
can I ask a question? Can someone who applies sufficient pressure to someone on their shoulder blade, can they be suffocated?
I don't know. I not
Because the
medically.
man was suffocated. We know that he was suffocated.
Well, you need to see the video, and that might change your mind.
Okay.
There were a lot of other extenuating circumstances on all the different drugs he was on, including fentanyl, when he was encountered. And there's some real questions upon the autopsy that was done, and so forth. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to put my judgments in there. I'd like you to see what you think.
All
But I
right.
just
I will make an effort to see it. There's another consideration whether if the police department is seen as they don't give a shit about me, they're not going to do anything to protect me, they're going to go after me at the first opportunity, then the police department can't do the job that the rest of the population expects it to do, and B, the whole legal system falls apart. And if the legal system falls apart, then we don't have a society.
okay. I'm not sure.
Well, my point being, if Chauvin caused the death, and I believe he did, but I haven't seen the show that you're talking about, so I will watch it, then he should be punished because there was
I'm
nothing.
not saying I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
If he did cause the death, then he has to receive some punishment. You need to see the video and express that afterwards and see
And
if
if he
that's
didn't cause the death, then maybe there should be some punishment involved because he did a bunch of other things that were unnecessary, but he shouldn't receive the same level of punishment.
I
And
mean
I will know more.
the three police officers, including other ones, showed the handbook training manual that shows that was the customary training to put the knee on the shoulder on the neck as part of restraint. And when and these police officers said they were all trained that way. And when the chief of police was asked about it, he denied that. He said that wasn't true. They had the
Okay.
manuals that showed exactly what was supposed to be done, and so
Then
forth.
the chief of police, for whatever reason, was lying on the stand, and he should be punished for it. O.J.
Well,
Simpson killed. I'm positive O.J. Simpson killed 2 people, and he should have been convicted, except for one minor detail. The police planted evidence, and in order for us to have faith in dealing with the police, he should have been let off because the police didn't do their job.